working class rising up. This is the ruling class punching down.
My day bigger your day.
First rule of gladiator school, bro. Don't punch down.
Charging into a goblin den.
Hail Trump!
The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Control your own body.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
We can fight the entire grinding system. Nobody can. But together, everybody can.
I did nothing wrong.
Welcome to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, where we cut through the noise and help you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff Somke, and with me today is Karl Folk.
Hey, all.
Document this. I'm going to document this.
Stop this bull! Leave him alone!
Coming on this side. Media. Okay, come on through. Back up.
This is wrong. I'm here because there's torture in that facility. It's a concentration camp, and because my conscience calls me to do it. What's happening here is evil, and the Illinois State Police are complicit in it. They're evil themselves.
On today's episode of America's Dumbest Criminals, it seems like things are escalating in Chicago. They are now arresting uniformed clergy. And the Pope himself has called on the Trump administration to please stop committing human rights violations here. And the optics of this are fucking terrible. This is from the people who are always on about freedom of religion, as we are now seeing what they actually meant was freedom of religion for white people.
Yes.
How does this end, Karl? How does this end?
I don't have a good answer to that right now. I mean, realistically, the optics of this, just the PR part of my brain hurts, like in a very fundamental way. But, it's one thing to be fucking around in the way that they've been. It is a different way to be fucking around to where the Pope comes out against you. In a real, clear and
unambiguous message here. Yeah. And you're really hoping if you're the Pope, you don't have to name names. Yeah. I think you're really hoping that you don't have to say, hey, Tom Homan.
Yeah.
You say you're a Catholic.
Yeah.
And you're also telling me that the bishops and the Pope are wrong about this. And that's not how it works, guy.
No, it is how it works if they want to have a little bit of, a schism, but I don't think, I mean, as much as the tradcaths in this country would love it, if there was a full-on schism and the anti-pope was a hardline fascist Catholic, that is not the mode for the church itself, right? Like, it would be different if we had the setup they had in the 30s where the church was on board.
Right.
This church is fundamentally not, right? And
absolutely.
It's
very hard to overstate just how not on board the church is with this at this point.
Literally, I was trying to kind of come up with a level of how not on board they are. It's very hard to do, right? Because traditionally, the Catholic Church, up until the Second World War, was very much on that side. And even after, don't get me wrong, they have their issues.
Oh, no, they've definitely had their issues around the world in various places. And
exactly.
I think when Leo was, elected, people weren't quite sure how that was going to go.
Yeah.
But he's really put himself out there for this one, I think.
Yeah. I think so too, and I think too it's part of a broader conversation that has been happening at pretty high levels between the tradcath sect of Catholicism in the West and then the broader church. And I think this is the beginning of that hard line really coming out where the church itself, the Pope,
Yeah. Yeah.
is going to probably be more vocally against what this J.D. Vance version of Catholicism
It
is.
is. It's like the
And
people who can't accept Vatican II versus the people who did. And
that's exactly, yeah,
what
that's a
you're really
great way to
looking
put
at
it.
here is what happens when the Pope decides to show up for this.
Yeah.
Because I don't think
Yeah.
that's really at all out of the realm of possibility. At some point,
Uh,
that's the best way to make the point. Are the ICE guards going to turn him away?
I mean, that's the real thing, right? Like, we may come up, and it seems more and more likely that we may run into one of the true moments, like defining moments for this kind of thing, because we like where the Pope, who is from Chicago,
Yeah.
decides to do the thing that the church preaches, which is to stand with the people. I am not a Catholic. I was not raised Catholic. The church is spooky. Let's just say
Fair. Fair.
in my estimation. But what we're seeing is a church that has decided to actually follow through with what it says it is versus following
Yeah.
through with a prosperity gospel style hollowing out of ethics and morality in place of, some kind of, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word, deeply rationalistic in the, kind of philosophical sense version of religion where everything has value, but value is tantamount to godliness. And so, this
Mhm.
is the major schism, right? In my
Yep.
mind, isn't between necessarily even religious belief within the church. There is a whole bunch of problems there.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of American Catholicism in the form they believe in,
Mhm.
which is the traditional Catholic Church, doesn't compete in the sense of cash flow that the evangelicals do, that some other
No.
groups do.
No.
And so there's this tension here in the States, at least, and probably much more broadly across the West, where the dominant kind of conservative Christian view is this prosperity gospel style value assessment. And the church is kind of saying no. The value is just in that you're a human.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that alone, I mean, for any of us who are older than about 15, um this the Catholic Church, this is something new.
Yeah.
Publicly, at least, at the highest levels.
It's
It's
something
happened.
new here. It's
Yeah,
not something new in a lot of places. I mean, this whole thing called liberation theology
correct.
happened where a
Correct.
lot of people
Exactly.
decided that, hey, some of these teachings actually point me in a very different direction, and I think I need to resist against this
Correct.
authoritarianism. And that's not something we've seen on a large scale, I don't think, in the United States up until basically now.
Not like this, no. And like liberation theology was something that was seen as so kind of radical for
Yeah.
so long by traditional groups and by traditional members of multiple different sects, right? Because traditional Christianity has seen liberation theology show up in a
Yeah.
myriad of places, not just the Catholic Church. And that's been one of those big internal struggles that we've seen for a long time. And I think this is going to be a very interesting test of liberation theology and the idea that we are good enough as we are,
Yeah.
that there's no added value needed for us to be us. That is a hell of a powerful tool to wield against an ideology that is based on value and what that means in terms of money, not in terms of who you are as a human. And your
Yeah.
value and your morality are dictated by cash versus who you are. These are major arguments, right? And these are going to be major theological arguments for a long time
Yeah.
for those who adhere. So I think the Pope coming out this way and really saying, like, if you continue to arrest clergy,
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to be loud.
Mhm.
That's an incredibly powerful weapon. And it's one we've seen the church do before and play that role before. Generally, it's in countries we were overthrowing at the time for the CIA, funny enough. But that's the irony, right? Like that is the universe's irony is awesomely grotesque. And this is one of those ones
This
where we
film
get
is
to see it.
dedicated to the brave Mujahideen fighters. You know, it's like ain't aging well.
God bless you, Sly. You know, it's one of those rare ones though where like we're actually seeing the shift, like the historic timeline shifts that go along, you know, that a lot of us have only read about, where the church has kind of, the Catholic Church at least, has put their money on a line and they're going to bet the line.
Yeah.
And that's really important for what we're dealing with, because there is a moment here, and we may be approaching it, where Trump's power, the Republicans' power, is so fractured by the shit that's happening internally, by this kind of stuff, that someone like the Pope showing up at Broadview would end you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would end the movement. It doesn't just end Trump. This fundamentally ends a guy like Vance in a real fundamental way as a quote Catholic.
Yeah.
It really puts a damper on the optics for all of it when like the Pope shows up and says this is a war crime.
Yeah.
This is a crime against humanity. This is a moral crime. Like, how do you don't change the optics of the Pope showing up? Because when was the last time the Pope actually showed up in the US anyway?
Oh, it's been a minute. And the last time it
Exactly.
seems like the Pope showed up for something like this was probably 1979 in
Yes.
Poland, when the Pope showed up to put his own sort of blessing to some extent on the solidarity movement.
Correct.
How'd that end up? How'd that go?
Exactly. Funny
You
enough.
know? I mean,
funny enough, didn't go well.
If you tell me we're on the solidarity in Poland timeline for this, I'd take it.
It's going to be
Tell me
real
that
funny.
at this point, I'd take it.
It's going to be real funny, is what that means. Because, like, you know, I don't, you know, I think for a lot of people, they don't fully realize, like, the sway that the Catholic Church has in really interesting groups.
Yeah.
Groups that you may never have heard of, groups that you've never even thought about having an association with any religious institution. You know, they're following the mandate. And if the mandate says that you must speak out against all injustice, no matter what, and that's what's coming down from the top, well, that's a different world for a lot of these folks. And
it really is.
It's going to be very interesting to see what that turns into, right? Like the optics, you know, this isn't the first time we've seen clergy arrested by the Trump administration.
Oh, no,
but those this video specifically with him giving a sermon with cops on top of him is one of the things, even as a person who is not very religious, you understand the power that has.
And you have to respect it. This is a guy who like cares enough about his faith that he is out there letting the jackboots stomp on him to make a point.
Literally. And it's a true sign of the conviction and clarity that person has. That's hero shit. I don't
And that's the allies you want. Those are the people that you want.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's really interesting in this country because we have such a bizarre view of religion as skewed through all these different political lenses that we use, that when we actually see what, you know, quote, religion looks like in practice in these situations, people,
we're not used to it anymore.
No. And people really truly are affected by it, right? Like it's an incredibly powerful moment to see someone so faithful, so truly on board with what they believe, that they're willing to put themselves in a position of true powerlessness and danger. That we have a lot of examples of that in our history, but we don't always acknowledge them until after the fact.
Right.
So I think seeing it now in real time, that has sped that process up for some people who might have taken a little bit of like more movement maybe to have them say, wait, hold on, what's happening now? And I know, like, talking to my, you know, to my parents and to others who still attend church, like this morning was an interesting day across the country in churches. And, I think, across faiths, this is something that resonates really deeply in the same way that Reverend Bunn did.
Yeah.
Like this is talking about basic humanity shit.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the politics that are normally associated with religion. And it shows too that there are people of conviction everywhere. And
There are
that's
people who are still working in good faith, because the one thing that
yeah.
has been absolutely rammed down our throats for the last, since the 90s almost, even earlier, is the idea that there's a war on Christians in this country. You
Yep.
will hear them say that, war on Christians, war on Christians. And it's like, wait a second. The minute you get the power, are perpetuating what you would call a war on Christians.
And you do it in a much more
Uh-huh.
overt way than anything that's ever been done to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the grievance is that like they're anti-Christian because they won't let us, threaten abortion doctors.
Yeah.
And like they're anti-Christian because they won't let us practice mass hate rallies against a bunch of local teens who are queer.
Yeah.
Right? And so like you have this disingenuous, absolutely bad faith argument that like it's a war on Christians because you're not allowing these hateful things to take place. But then
Yeah.
you have it juxtaposed against, well, we're just going to beat the shit out of this preacher while he's giving a sermon on the street because you guys are kidnapping and disappearing people into concentration camps and torture centers. Like this is not the same thing. Like this is not an argument you can actually make in good faith, and I think that that's actually backfired.
Yeah.
The Epstein stuff has been interesting because it's shown us this, right? That like some of this narrative has backfired.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
it goes back to the question that Jay posed early on after the election, which is when does Trump not need his base anymore? I think we're there.
Yeah.
I think they're finding out the hard way that we're there. But
They're
also
finding out what happens to people Donald Trump doesn't need anymore.
exactly. But I also think this is the moment that makes, I mean, that's an incredibly dangerous moment for any autocrat, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a moment of instability where something like these moments we're seeing with preachers being arrested, with neighborhoods getting gassed, with
Mm-hmm.
Bovino going out and saying things, like this is our city, we'll do as we please.
Yeah.
All of the shit that has some real heft
The
to
White
it.
House's response to this whole thing being womp womp.
Literally,
Officially.
Corey Lewandowski, when he did that
Mm-hmm.
during the first term, if I'm correct, didn't that pretty much end his ability to be a part of the administration in like a
It
public-facing
did,
way?
but that was before he was, dating Kristi Noem.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, he wasn't
That's
dating
fair.
Christie. He wasn't dating the, Homeland Security
No,
Secretary at
correct.
the time.
Well, and that's the question.
So,
I mean, to me, it reads like Lewandowski is the one running the account. That's a different conversation.
Mhm.
But when that's the politics coming out of the highest offices and the highest voices, as much as MAGA has like withstood and taken on and been a part of a lot of this, the people who are next to MAGA
yeah,
but weren't fully on board with the whole thing, but voted that way because that was what they did.
yeah.
We're starting to see that tank, right? Like these I don't know if I've ever seen a president 36 points underwater
No.
on immigration before. Like,
And that was his absolute calling card. That was what he won on, was immigration. It was immigration. I mean, from the first term, it was build the wall.
it was immigration, build the wall.
Kick
And
out
the
the
second
Muslims,
time round-
Muslim ban. Yep.
Yep. And the second time around, it was I will lower your prices.
And I will deport all the brown people.
Correct. And so he's doing both.
He did one of them.
Things.
He did one of them.
He's doing he's changed the price on groceries, just not the way he wanted.
Right.
But that's it's really upsetting that the shit that's going to end up destroying the coalition is like the price of a gallon of milk, not the fascism. But ultimately, I and more of the belief that it's going to be something incredibly benign that stops these guys before they can do the whole thing that they want to. They're
Right.
incredibly dangerous up until the minute that they're not. But like, it wouldn't shock me in some ways, just looking at the reaction we're starting to see, that it's going to be something rather benign that ends up doing this versus something grand.
Right.
And
Right. It's not going to be some big finale. It's going to be something
no, it's going to be
something stupid, something Watergate-ish, like
it's going to be something
they had a
dumb.
tape system running or something dumb.
Literally. And that's what's going to be what does Trump in. I think the scariest part of all of this for me isn't the danger of that, because there is some danger in the king figure of a you know, of a cult of the kind we're dealing with going down. My concern is his successor.
Oh yeah. And the
'Cause
jockeying has already started for that position. You have,
exactly.
you know, MAGA finding out maybe they don't matter as much. Starting to
Yeah.
seem like the next coronated leader over there is going to be JD Vance, and you better like it. But I
Yeah,
don't think
well,
there's a lot of
yeah.
MAGA that actually supports that. I think there's a lot of these people that would like somebody else, but who?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, I think that like there's a real chance that we get Vance, and Vance is the end of the road insofar as like he
Yeah.
actually tries to do the fascist consolidation effectively.
Right.
But at the same time, like that's a much bigger mess for them to contain if they don't have MAGA on board. Because MAGA, you know, MAGA is the only one that's taken a shot at a president. It happens to be that it was their own.
Sure.
But
Sure.
you know, like these guys are scary, right? And like desperate people, and I think it's good at this point to remind everyone listening that like MAGA preyed on the most desperate people in the country. Are going to
Yes.
do desperate things, and if they feel that they're not being heard, which is clear because that's what got us Trump.
Yep.
If you know, if a sizable portion of the population doesn't feel that they're being heard electorally, that their leader is gone, that they're the leader that is following him from the same party doesn't represent them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's a wholly different thing than what we're dealing with. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nihilism on a big, massive scale, I think, at that point.
Well, and it's just a bunch of people who truly, what else can you do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I keep thinking about red state farmers who truly were desperate because their family farms were fucked.
Yeah.
And yeah, they voted for the fascist. And some of them did it because of their belief that he would enact his fascist goals. But overall, many of them did it because they had nowhere else to turn. The Democrats had abandoned them 30 years ago.
Right.
So what do you do? And you know, that's the scary part about this is these are people looking for someone to hear them, to take their shit seriously. And I don't mean the racism and the misogyny that's coming from MAGA, but the actual economic situations that drove them to accept that and to be radicalized into that are still present. You got a huge fucking problem. Like
West Virginia used to be a solidly Democratic state. Every election they elected Democrats. What happened?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
You know? Why did they go from whatever they were before to whatever they are now? How'd that happen?
And that's the question, right, that I think a lot of people have been asking since 2016 and before, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we want it to be a simple answer that has like a, well, it's just they got lied to and it's a cult.
No.
Some of that's true. Some of that is true.
Right. Well, it is.
But the bigger issue is the pre-existing conditions socially that led them there, right? And like if you don't fix those problems, you're going to have a perennially angry and disaffected group of citizens that literally just need their lives to get marginally better year to year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't think Vance is going to be able to do that. So this is just going to be a continuation of the thing that brought us Trump, but with the added weight of a fascist. And
I don't think Vance is even sort of interested in doing that.
there's no part of me that sees Vance wanting to do that. Vance wants very clearly what Vance wants, which is his 20 or so Silicon Valley buddies and white supremacist buddies to maintain their wealth, right? Like that's really the clear belief he has, is that his friends should be wealthy, he should be wealthy, and his wife should be white Christian. But that's, he's got a little bit of it.
He'll get there. He's working on that part.
He is working on that. But that's
he says he hopes Usha converts someday. He hopes.
He hopes.
There's a whole lot of unspoken there, but hey, we hope.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's some praying going on. But
in other news.
In other news. No, that's the thing though, right? Like I think that people are so desperate for Trump to be the entire issue when really, like, again, this is broken record shit. He's not. And so, like, I think Trump goes down in a really benign way. If he goes down and doesn't just kick it in office.
On the toilet, it's gonna be Elvis.
It would be
on the gold toilet in the White House like Elvis.
This is what we would call the correct moral ending to this story, is the pullback from the golden toilet with Trump slumped over. And down the hall, through the West Wing and out through the destroyed East Wing doors. That is the reality, right? Like, we're not going to probably have some giant cathartic moment where fascism is defeated in the way that we want it to. But these are all cracks, whether it's the things we're seeing around what's happening at Broadview, whether it's what we're seeing with the Pope. And, it's also what we're seeing around the opening of government, right? Like, the government reopened, and it's a similar state of just like abject disbelief, but from the other side, because it was the Democrats this time that provided cover. And it's just, it's really an interesting thing looking at these two groups and seeing such similar reflections, right? That MAGA was just looking for someone to listen. And so they went to the charlatan fascist. And then you've got this, the Democratic Party saying, we're willing to go against everything we've said to open government again, but we
got the issue in front of people. We raised awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And then the second half of that is, how are you so ungrateful as to ask us to actually do something that helps people?
You just don't understand how the Senate works.
Literally. And that,
no, Dick Durbin, we do understand how the Senate works, and that's the whole problem.
That actually is the issue here. But that again is the same dynamic that set up the Tea Party to be able to show up and then turn into MAGA, right? Because it is the disaffected, it is those who see this for what it is, which is really, really, really bad politics that are hurting people.
Yeah.
It's a setup for another mass radicalization of more people in a really heavier way.
Right. And let me run a scenario by you here when it comes to mass radicalization. One of the provisions in the bill that opens Congress permits...
I'm just gonna jump in here and tell everyone I am shaking my head and very upset about this, because I know exactly where we're going.
This is bad.
This is bad.
So you may have noticed lately a trend towards Republican types, MAGA types, J6ers, any number of other people, former National Security Administrator Mike Flynn, are suing the government for crimes real and imagined. And remember the old saying, you sue anybody for anything, DA can indict a ham sandwich. It's any number of things, but the DOJ is not fighting these lawsuits. The DOJ is settling these lawsuits. All the folks who did time over J6, as they justifiably should, are now out of jail, and they are suing the government for false imprisonment, and the government's writing the checks.
Yep.
And in this bill that's opening up the government, some senators introduced an amendment, and you would think maybe they're trying to put a stop to some of this shit. No, they want their slice. The senators who were monitored during the Mueller investigation. Hey, remember that? Remember that when that happened? Good times.
Actual fucking agents of a foreign country. Let's continue. Yes.
They were monitoring, and they're suing for damages because they got their phones monitored, and the administration's not going to fight it. And that's the whole trend now. It's like,
yep.
If you're a friend of Trump, if you're a MAGA person, and you can even come up with like the flimsiest pretext, you sue the government, they don't contest it, and you take home millions of dollars. What happens when people kind of figure that out?
You mean that we're all paying taxes just so they can raid the treasury?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happens at that point, right? Because like this is literally what's happened. And so I think it's really tough, right? Like we're in a moment where the treasury is being raided by the worst people imaginable, by literal criminals and foreign agents. And that story has not gotten out yet in a big way. But I do have a feeling that one's going to strike people as being real problematic. That that our taxes are literally being paid to billionaires, to criminals, to insurrectionists, to seditionists, to neo-Nazis, to
any number of other scumbags that happen to be coming up with their handout. Meanwhile, Snap has been cut.
Well, exactly.
Meanwhile, people have been kicked off of Snap and have to reapply because of this shutdown.
Exactly.
We have.
Meanwhile, USAID is no longer functioning, and millions of people are dying outward.
And inwardly, we got people who can't eat. We got people whose healthcare premiums just absolutely fucking spiked.
10 times
in some cases. And at some point you have to look at this if you're one of those people and look at the looting of the treasury that's going on and say, they don't care about you.
No.
They don't care about you at all.
Well, exactly. And I think ultimately, like, there's a really good question right now that I think will have to be raised at some point, which is about taxation without representation.
Yeah, that's a real fun one, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's so much fun. We've thrown tea parties about it.
You hold off a senator or a House of Representatives members swearing in from my state that long.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that there's going to be some people who are going to go and write the word exempt on their W-2.
Correct. And that's the thing, right? Like at the state level, that's going to be where it has to happen, right? The states are going to have to decouple. And I think that this is the uglier, bigger conversation that everyone's, I think, rightly kind of avoiding because it's a really tough one. But
mess.
Like, how do the real question I think that everyone who is thinking on this subject right now is kind of thinking about is, how do you decouple a federalized system from states? And what does that actually mean? And like, what does that actually do? Like, what does that say about the democracy? Does the democracy of the United States federal system still function? Does it exist? I think those arguments right now would lean towards no. I know, talking from other people in the field and some people we all know and read, they've said similarly, where it's democracy doesn't exist. The federal system is being retreated from by the federal government. We have to figure that out because these are vacuums that the Republicans have wanted to fill with private enterprise for a long time, but those private enterprises don't exist. So like, they're just going to be holes. And
they'll tell you it does, but it's really one of their buddies who's got an LLC and a shell company.
It's Christy Dome's boyfriend running a shell company, right? Like, and that's the thing here where like, I think we have to broaden our imaginations to what democracy could look like and maybe should look like, but could look like without some of these factors.
Yeah.
Federalization, these things. And what we are talking about, I should be clear, is secession. But
soft secession, but secession.
it's the federal government seceding from the states, right? So, like, that's a different thing. And I think that that's the conversation that hasn't been
Yes.
had yet,
Yes.
is that the states want to stay together, but the federal government is pulling back.
We didn't leave the United States. The United
No,
States left
the
us.
states left us. And that's the real fucker of this, is like, that's a different thing than
Mhm.
the Civil
good.
War. It's a different thing than the Civil War, right? Because the
Right.
Civil War was a true secession of states to form their own country.
Sure.
That's a different conversation, and one that inherently puts the ball in the Union's court. That's why it's important, though, to frame this in my mind, that the government left us.
Yeah.
Because then that gives blue states, that gives states that do want to work within a democratic framework, the ability to claim the mantle of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've talked about publicly since the inauguration, because I think this is the route that we have to understand, is we are going to be forced to do a mesh network of sorts of democratic states, mindset, endeavors, peoples, and groups that does not function as the government.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be stuff that we as a population can maintain outside of government.
A shadow government.
And, yeah, something akin to a shadow government. And frankly, like, we already have shadow economies all over the place. We already, for all intents and purposes, there are two economies in this country and have been since the 70s, right? Which is, we have the economy of the business, which is Wall Street, NASDAQ, this, and then we have the day-to-day economy of what people can actually afford.
Yeah.
And those are disparate things that have no connection in real ways. I mean, there are connections, but in real day-to-day ways for most people, there's no connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why wouldn't we function as a democracy similarly, where we can do it without these things, where maybe we can do it in better ways that reflect the federal, what the federal system's sentiment was, but it could never pull off.
No.
And if we have the mantle of the Constitution and as the democracy, and the federal government's the one who's retreated from that, that also gives us some other powers down the road that would be quite useful to us.
Yeah.
And it is a very different conversation than the secession conversation of, well, we don't like this country, we're going to build our new one. It's, we are this country. The federal government just decided it didn't want to do it anymore.
At some point, we had to do this because we had no other choice.
Correct.
We are not capable of being both, I mean, you're either going to have to be a country or a part of one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's just, this is tough stuff because it's bigger than us in a way that the original idea of, like, a democratic republic founded by and for the people, right? Because this isn't one thing. This is talking about, like, how do you form a government from a fractured world? And I think that that's going to be, this is the part where imagination has to be fostered, because we can do so much better than what we have now currently, for sure. No questions asked. But even than what we had before that led us here. And that doesn't mean to discard democracy. It means to reimagine democracy in the way that it could and probably should function now, as a much more nimble, hybrid entity that exists not just in one place, but is literally the thing that's laid out in our history, which is, it's in all of us, but it's also in all of our, like, day to day, just by being a part of this and wanting it to continue and doing the work of that is the democracy. The rest of this shit is just, we've added to it. But if you want that thing to function, we can do it. We just have to imagine it and really think through what that looks like, and then work to build it.
And we have to be willing to work cross aisle, cross church denomination, cross
100%
people that we didn't necessarily have to expect to work with are now very important parts of the coalition for the same reasons, because they saw something.
Yeah.
And they had to go up and do something. So now you've got the Catholic Church working with, literal protest groups in a lot of cases. And people have their issues with that. There's a lot of people out there for a lot of very good and justified reasons.
Understandable
that don't
reasons.
want to work they don't want to work around religion in general and the Catholic Church in specifics. But
totally understandable.
There comes a time where you're like, we're in a war here.
Yeah. Yeah. And democratic coalitions are great because they are just a coalition, right? Like, I don't have to agree with the Catholics to understand that they have some power that we don't without them.
I mean, this is the whole one big issue thing. And to a large extent, I think that's where, as long as you're not dealing with somebody who was, say, like maybe, named in the Epstein files or some shit like that, I think we don't really have the room to exclude anybody of good faith that wants to come in and figure out how to end this thing.
No, I agree with that. And it's the keywords there, good faith. And that is something,
absolutely.
And that is something we as a population have to get better at, is discerning the good faith versus bad faith. And that, though, is not
always easy.
Not always easy, but it's also not exclusionary to doing the work. Like any big project, you are going to have moments where you find that there are certain people within the organization that don't have the same goal. That's just the reality of working with different people.
Yeah.
But the response to that is what dictates how powerful the thing you are is, right? And if you're nimble enough to understand that, like, this person might not be right, we may have made a mistake, that's good and powerful and should be done more. That discernment in itself shows that you care enough to have something different. And if you're unwilling, it's really tough, right? Like, we've seen this time and again. We've seen it recently with, like, Platt, right? Where it is good to have a big tent. It is not good to have a big enough tent where we can excuse absolute fuckbag things.
I just saw an example of this. A guy named Bryce Mitchell fights in the UFC, has made comments positively about Hitler. He said on, and I'm going to look this up here because I want to be exact, in a video published by MMA Weekly on December 7th, 2024, Bryce Mitchell announced that he would take a bullet and die for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Okay. So fast forward to now.
Yes.
Have you seen this clip? I don't want to air the clip because I don't think Bryce Mitchell is an especially nice or intelligent person, but there is a clip of this UFC fighter named Bryce Mitchell going off for 5 solid minutes about how Donald Trump is the Antichrist according to the book of Revelations. This is the same guy who was saying less than a year earlier that he would take a bullet for Donald Trump. And now his view has moved to, guys, I'm sorry, I was wrong. He was the literal Antichrist. And he goes into the whole bullet across the ear thing. And I found myself thinking, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Things have changed.
I've heard this before, but I hadn't thought about it since the whole bullet in the ear thing. And holy shit, that's bad.
Oh, no. And that's just it. We're starting to see really weird things happen, right? Because of all of these other things we've been talking about. I mean, hell, look at MTG. Marjorie out here is like starting a knife fight, a long knife fight in the fascist ranks, similarly to our MMA, person here. And it's like, okay, I'm glad that pedophilia is a step too far. I am glad that you like have something in you where you're like, oh my God. But also, go fuck yourself. I'm not working with you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing with discernment, right? Like, and this is the issue. We've talked about it. I know that we've seen with things like the resist circle, and it's not the people necessarily within it. It's people within it trying to drive it, where there's a redemption narrative.
Right.
No, these people don't deserve redemption because they suddenly had well, fucking kids is too far from my fascist worldview. I don't care. You're still a piece of shit. Please
Yeah, you got
leave.
some work to do, guy.
Yeah, not just some work.
And that's the work you need to do on your own side. I can't tell you how to do that kind of work. I can't tell you how to talk to the people that you talk to and convince them of this. If you are convinced now that he is the Antichrist, that's great. And what I need you to do is go tell every single one of your friends and convince them.
Yeah, correct.
Every
right?
single
And
other person you know, everybody at your gym, everybody you train with, all your rolling partners, you need to tell every single one of these people about Donald Trump as the Antichrist. If this is what you really believe, and it sounds like it is, I don't know that this guy's got a whole lot of guile going on. He just doesn't really strike me as the most, shall we say, two-faced or deceptive person. I think you kind of get what you're getting with this one.
Yeah,
And that's where it's at. And you go convince the people who are impressed by your act.
Yeah.
You go convince the people that respect you and think you're great that this is how you feel about it. I'm glad you figured out that he's a piece of shit. I'm not sure we're going to go Antichrist here, although I don't entirely disagree with you. I'm just saying, you go sell that.
Yeah.
I can't sell that to the people you can sell that to. Go sell that.
No, that's exactly right. And like, I think, those fractures are going to become more important really quickly. And it's like the other UFC fighter that came out recently and said, I'm not fighting at the White House. That's some Hunger Games bullshit.
Yeah.
And like, this is another guy who is, I wouldn't say like fully in the bag for Trump, but he also wasn't fully not in the bag for Trump.
Well, the thing you got to understand is that most of these guys are. And part of the reason most of these guys are, or at least they are in public, and I got into this a little bit on Blue Sky yesterday, but because Dana White is such a hardcore Trumper, and because Dana White decides pretty much everything about what happens inside of the UFC, if you don't like Trump, you're not going to say anything about it.
Yeah.
Because you want to fight. And
exactly.
You're not going to get fights if you're saying things about Trump that Dana doesn't like.
Correct. Exactly. No, and that's just it, right? And I think that that's actually an interesting point to make in this because Dana White is a very Trumpian character.
Oh, absolutely.
But what we're seeing is the cracks in his organization similarly look like the ones in Trump's administration because people are realizing like the true thing, which is like, this is bad. And if we continue to go along with it, we are bad too. And it's been interesting to see it from guys in the fighting world where like, I don't agree with the Nazi, the Hitler lover who like came over and was like, Trump's the Antichrist. But that does mean that the hegemonic, like the control aspect has broke, right? If that's starting to happen and you have people coming out saying things like fighting at the White House is some Hunger Games shit.
Yeah.
That actually says a ton about the underlying dynamic.
And he's saying it to an audience that, no Tom Nichols column is going to touch. He's saying that to an audience of people who aren't going to read The Atlantic ever. And all of a sudden they'll see a viral video of Bryce Mitchell talking about how Donald Trump's the Antichrist. And it's like, fuck, can't get enough of that.
Yep. And then they'll get it coupled with another video from their MMA feed of someone saying, I won't fight at the White House. This is some Hunger Games shit, and I'm not down with the Hunger Games shit.
And again, I don't like these people, but they figured it out for themselves. I didn't have to tell them.
Yep. And they have a huge following of people who, if they start seeing messages that look like that, are going to start to have a moment of, well, why are all my heroes, quote unquote, 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 starting to say the same thing?
Weird. And then maybe they'll go do a little research.
That right there is how you build in a fracture to a movement, right? Like this is why you see in authoritarian regimes throughout history, those guys end up getting shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're actually doing the thing effectively.
The man is a problem. No man, no problem.
No man, no problem. And that's just it, right? And that, to me, this has been really interesting because like Trump operated for the first 200 days. as a competent authoritarian. The people behind him did. He,
Yeah.
whatever. Him, himself, whatever. Fuck,
Yeah.
But the people behind him were functioning as a pretty adept authoritarian movement behind the scenes. That's still functioning. They're still doing huge damage. But their public face is starting to get fucked up in a way that, like, they're not, without them exerting maximum force, they're not going to get it back.
No.
And that for all of us is good, but also it should just be a reminder they are going to get much more dangerous.
They are.
As the public facade crumbles and they still have the actual power they do, because they have real true power to do
So I think
really fucked up stuff.
What we have to look at now is the idea that maybe this is actually working. Maybe this thing that we're doing is actually working as well as anything is going to at this point.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think too, like, and I've said this before, America, one of America's superpowers is one the rest of the world has known forever and has bagged on us for, which is we are the most irritating fucking people on the planet. Oh, yeah. We are just loud. We're obnoxious. We're fucking rude. We have zero give a fuck for anyone else's set of, like, moral or social, like, norms. And we roll in like fucking thunder.
Mm-hmm.
We may be using that for good for once, instead of being super irritating at some Dutch cafe trying to order Cokes. And, like, if that's the case, that's absolutely perfect for us. Because it's, I think about when the car was being invented, or being publicly embraced, let's say. Americans literally would remove road signs to fuck up the drivers because it was funny. We would literally tell people, like, so in 1908 there was a car race around the world. Like, I think it was like New York to Paris. 1908. This is early for cars. Okay. Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened in the US when, like, the French, British, and Germans were coming through in their cars?
No.
Because the United States citizens were just like, no, cool, it's that way. Just go like 2 miles that way. You'll be fine. There's a fucking lake over there. Watch this. And then they would take down road signs and put them up in the road. We would take out railroad. We would take out the road signs and turn them around and put them back. We would take road signs and put different mileage markers. We did this for not just the racers, but just people driving cars. There was a period in the US where they had to replace telephone poles and telegraph poles every couple weeks because Americans would go out and shoot at them until they fell down. Americans are super petty, irritating, incredibly kind of folksy groups. As much as we don't like admitting that, a majority of this country will fuck with people just to do it. And that is what we're...
For the lulz.
Because you don't have the authority to do that. I am a naturally... I have natural rights as a human. Fuck you. We were predicated on this. And we have always embraced it. We're always those people. And I think it is finally working.
Yes.
On Trump, or at least the public perception of Trump, that, like, just shut the fuck up. Like, we don't care. I could give two shits what you're saying about fucking Venezuela being the home of dictators who are sending fentanyl as a weapon of war. Get the fuck out of here, man. Like, most people, that's the response.
Yeah.
Is just like, are you fucking kidding me? How stupid do you think we are? That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
As we're seeing. And, like, no kings, it was great to put 7 million people out on the street. It's a good thing. I don't like the group who did it, but the better thing is what's come from all of this, which is us just saying, no, I don't think that's right. You know what? Fuck you. I actually think you're wrong and that you're putting me in a position where I'm not just going to be wrong, it's going to make me feel bad. We
No.
don't do that here.
No.
Like, we're so bad that the president, a fascist, is relenting because we're pissed about grocery prices. Do you know how petty? Do you know how petty a country you have to be to get a fascist to change course because it's so unpopular that even his base is like, dude, we're gonna fucking take more shots at you. We've done it already. Like what? Like it's unbelievable. Like this country, one of its immutable qualities is we are insufferable pricks if we feel we've been wrong.
Oh yeah.
That at scale is fucking wild. You can't sustain it forever unless you pull out the guns. And I truly think that they are scared shitless of pulling out the guns on a population that has that in them and 400 million guns.
Uh-huh. And not to put too fine a point on it, but there's a lot of reasons why you'll hear people wanting to get armed. You know, there's people that say, oh yeah, I'm doing it for hunting. I'm doing it for, you know, my Second Amendment rights. I'm doing it for, you know, any number of other reasons. I think all the people who just went and bought guns on the other side, they're doing it for one reason.
Yeah, they're doing it for one reason. I'm not going to say what that reason is. It's kind of like hunting, but it's much more organized.
They're afraid.
Exactly. And that's it. And that's just it, right? Like they are afraid. They are organizing.
You don't want millions of people with disposable income buying guns because they're afraid. You do not want that.
And you definitely don't want a society where their only recourse feels like is to buy a gun. That
You've
is
heard
not
the old expression about the 4 boxes of liberty, haven't you?
Yes, yes.
Because right now it's starting to really feel like we're on, you know, box number 3.
I was about to say there is a box in there that, in fact, terms of service on many websites would get you banned for saying.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I found that on a Second Amendment Republican site.
So
don't ban me.
I hate it here that because the right understood that these were powerful things, they co-opted them first for their agenda, when the rest of us now are going to have that conversation.
But you know what? The materials are out there to have that conversation.
The framers of this country, in fact, gave us this great thing, which is called a written record of what was being said during the writing of not just our founding documents, but some other key things, like the Federalist Papers are kind of important in this. As much as I hate that I am having to talk about the Federalist Papers, they're really important in the thing that is happening right now.
You want to know how we got here?
Yeah. And truly how we may get out is a real understanding that, like, when you and I first started doing the grievances, for example, this summer, these are examples of why these documents are important. Not because of the originalist argument. That can leave. Right. But because these people had already thought through the logical endpoints of certain things. And for as much as these were flawed people doing terrible things, they understood human nature, I think, in a really interesting way that we see reflected both in our founding documents, but is much more so in the documents surrounding. And these are terribly racist people, and I'm not going to, say they're not. So they could never live up to the ideals that they had originally thought through. Right. Because they didn't see certain groups as people. People. But what they laid out is a framework for what could be. Yeah. And I think that that's the part, for all of us, you can't have a population that's buying guns out of fear because of what could be. That's very well cleared out in some of this language. Yeah. But the other part is you don't want a society that doesn't see itself as inherently free because they're human. And that's the part that we're, as a country now, or whatever we choose to do next, if we focus on that part, on that promise that was never lived up to, that's how you actually build something better but also
Yeah.
how you neuter the ability for this kind of shitbaggery to happen again. Because if it truly is a population of free people who are free just by virtue of being humans and being here, well, then why the fuck
Yeah.
is it your right to say that this group doesn't get to exist? It neutralizes it. And it changes the dynamic to us as personal agents of our own destiny insofar as what we want democracy to be.
Yeah.
And that is the stuff that, frankly, is the truly revolutionary component of what those documents were trying to get at. And it's really the revolutionary energy that could and should bring us out of this moment because of that.
And it might.
Right? And it very well may. We as a population are showing exactly the things outlined in that document.
Yeah.
Our leaders collapsed. We didn't.